Welcome to Sigurd Productions, sponsored by the Salt Lake Community College and the College English 1010 class. Today we have a special guest with us, the beautiful Caroline Sigurd. Welcome, Caroline, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here today, Sean.
Caroline, now that it is April and the semester is almost over for you, and finals are coming up this week, what are some of the things that you reflect on, I guess the highlights about the semesters?
Well, Sean, I can just say anyone should know college is hard, especially when you're working a job and doing full-time schooling and trying to balance your social life. It's definitely just trying to find the balance to kind of figure out where everything goes into that and trying to figure out how to do your classes and keep on top of those with A's and trying to get a good GPA. It's definitely overwhelming, I'd say the least.
Sounds stressful with all those things that you had to do and keep up with.
Yeah.
But I bet you learned a lot of life lessons and with moving out and be able to support yourself and
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a great time for me to learn different things, about how life works. And one of the biggest things, I think college taught me was being able to finance myself and being able to keep up with student debts and paying my loans on those and being able to also budget for my essentials such as my rent each month and my food and clothes and all the essentials that you need for everyday life. I mean, it very much does get overwhelming trying to keep all your finances together.
But Caroline, if you knew that your whole tuition was paid for, books were covered and food was provided for free, how would that have changed your college experience though?
I mean, wow, if I knew that everything was paid for, I mean, I think a huge weight would be taken off my shoulders. I feel like I would be able to focus more on my studies and my education itself, and maybe actually be more involved in school because I feel like a lot of the time I'm trying to stay on my schoolwork, and then the other times I'm working just to try and pay off those student loans I've got. And, it's trying to find that balance. If I knew I didn't have to pay those loans, wow, would it make a world of difference.
All right, Caroline, here's a good fact for you. A lot of college athletes do receive the benefit, their tuition being paid for, room being covered, books covered for school with also, on top of that, free meals. Over the past years, the NCAA has argued whether or not college athletes, on top of the benefits that they've already received, be also be able to receive payment on top of that, such as like a salary. What are your kind of thoughts on that?
I mean, Sean, I definitely see both sides to the argument. I think I'm leaning more towards the side, though, where I definitely think the players actually get paid. I think their salary is them having their tuition paid for. I think their board paid for and their food. That's how I see it as them getting paid. I see the other side of the argument, as being they don't have money to be able to go out and maybe have a drink with their buds or, kind of have money for their social life. But I think, the average of school, I mean, the University of Alabama is $12,000 for a resident, to go to school. And if you're a non resident to go to that school, it's 19,553.
Yeah, and
And
that's just in one semester.
yeah, I mean, definitely. And then you have so many other schools, such as like Duke and Kentucky and University of Tennessee and Yale. And I mean, all the different colleges, their tuition varies. I mean, some of those colleges have much more for a semester, you know what I mean? And those guys are being almost like paid to play.
And that is a great point. Now it is April, and back in March, we were able to witness the NCAA basketball tournaments. And in the men's tournament, the number 7 seed Connecticut Huskies, beat out the number 8 seed Kentucky Wildcats, winning the national tournament for the 2014 year. The average win in a single game is calculated to be about $1.6 million for that team that won, which the money will go back to that school that won.
Wow, Sean, I mean, what a great success for a team to be able to, work that hard and gel together to be able to kind of bring in that revenue for the school. I mean, this is when you look on the other side of the argument for, saying that players are paid to go to school. I mean, 1.6 million. I mean, if you balance out tuition and everything, I mean, yeah, they get their tuition and they get their board and everything paid for. It's a lot of money. Most of that money, though, actually goes to the administrators of the school, the athletic directors, and the coaches. So if so many people are getting paid for the college athlete success when they're the ones actually doing the hard work and they're the ones playing the game to bring in that money. I mean, yeah, then you can see why are the college athletes not being paid for that if the coaches are and they're the ones actually doing the work.
And yeah, you do bring up a huge point. I mean, college athletes do work very hard. They go to practice, they play games. They're in situations where they have to be, physically and mentally prepared. And they bring in a big revenue with sales tickets and everything, and they bring the crowds to attract the money. And, I think that's the topic that we're trying to reach today is try to figure out, is that really the issue? Is college athletes being paid really the thing that is the concern?
I mean, yeah, you look at it, and you see where definitely the coaches in the school are coming from. I think the school look at it in the fact we pay for your tuition, we pay for you to live in the boards, we feed you, we give you the coaches to be able to make you better as an athlete, you know what I mean? And so I think in that sense, you look at it as the school's probably thinking in a great sense. They're paying for the coaches, they have to pay for their equipment. They pay for everything that those people have. All the players have to do is turn up and they get the coaches to teach them. They get all the other people. So, I mean, if you look at that side of the argument and you see where the school's coming from as, no, we shouldn't have to pay the players. I mean, yeah, no, I don't think the school should have to pay the players if they're having to give them everything, and they're giving them support they need for that program.
And you're right. And, it's not just, basketball and football. It's not just the main sports. It's also the other sports, like track and field and all these other, there's a fair amount of students that participate in sports, in the athletic department. When a college supports a fair amount, students with scholarships, room and board, they're losing, tons of money they could have received by them not having to pay, with scholarships and they also, pay for administrators, coaches associated with that sport. If a team is not bringing in revenue with tickets and other merchandise, it could also lead to losing money and giving that school, some sort of financial debt.
I mean, yeah, and as much as you think about the schools, kind of getting into debt, you also think about those students who don't have their scholarships. And initially, maybe you think about the fact that they're paying money to the school, and maybe that's what the school's using to pay the athletes. And then where does it get fair? You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, you're just kind of saying the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and not every school is the one that goes deep into the tournaments, they're not the ones who get the money, they're not the ones who get recognised, and if you pay one college athlete's pay, then not every school can afford that. They're not the ones that, could be able to pay every player, and if every player needed to be paid, and they weren't, and schools weren't able to do that, lawsuits would be coming left, right and centre.
Yeah, and so, that's basically the real question. Is the school just trying to create jobs, or are they trying to create a way to get students an education and have them receive a way to get a job in the future?
I think this is a topic that will always be coming up, and I think there'll be two different sides to the argument always, and I think it's just going to remain ongoing, don't you think?
I think you're right, Caroline, and thank you so much for joining us today. Is there a special song that you'd like to listen to today before we leave?
Yeah, thank you for having me here today. I've always been a huge Michael Jackson fan, so I think we'll finish with one of those.
All right, well, here's little Michael for you.